Hey everyone, welcome to a special bonus episode of Locked On Lakers. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Dan Hurley takes LA's offer and hurls it right back at them. He's staying at Connecticut and the coaching search continues. Much to unpack next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen or second listen now in the case of an emergency podcast of every day. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 24,000 subscribers, Andy, all of whom are very disappointed in the results of today's news Monday. Dan Hurley said he was going to make a choice, and I guess the only thing that we can say that did work out was that he waited long enough for the show we recorded for Monday for people to listen to it, so that we appreciate. But Dan Hurley, according to Woj, according to Jeff Goodman, has turned down the Lakers' offer. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Obviously, first of all, he turned down the Lakers' offer. Second, this from Woj, the offer that he turned down, which we had been talking about, can Dan Hurley turn down $100 million and this and that, and whatever, 8 years, 9 years, 10, what all these rumors about what the contract would look like, Andy. But the numbers always being talked about in the context of $100 million weren't there. 6 years, $70 million, which would have made him, I believe, the fifth highest paid average, but as Woj said, in the top six.
Yes.
So there's that. And then there's the what comes next portion of this. Where would you like to begin, Andy?
First of all, the acknowledgement that on the rail there's a typo. Emergency show is HSHO. There's no W. My fault. I'm just owning this. But faux show, I'm owning up. Where to begin?
Dan Hurley turns down Lakers because podcasters can't spell.
Where to begin? I'm beginning right. It's funny. Like I'm seeing a lot of reaction to this and the idea that this was all a smokescreen for Dan Hurley to get more out of UConn, and that the Lakers were getting used, they were getting played, that they were marks in this whole thing. That may end up true, I suppose. That's not yet where I'm willing to go, if for no other reason than what we've seen so far doesn't provide enough evidence that the Lakers were marks this whole time. Like, as a contrasting example of those who've followed us a long time, our coverage, whether with ESPN or The Athletic, various different outlets, when the Lakers were in pursuit of Kawhi Leonard, I was saying in the moment before he eventually went to the Clippers, he is using the Lakers for leverage, because to me, Kawhi Leonard seemed like the superstar who would enjoy being a Laker the least of anybody out there. And I just could not picture him wanting to deal with everything that comes with the visibility of playing for the Lakers. And it's like, look, there are people far more entrenched in this situation than I am, more deeply sourced, who think this is a thing. And I'm not going to tell them definitively they're wrong, because I don't know. I'm just telling you, this feels to me like Kawhi using the Lakers, because I just can't picture him joining this team. The situation with Dan Hurley, for the time being, what we know, the money that he is getting from UConn is not so substantially greater that it feels, at least for the time being, whatever bump was the result of this massive leverage play. Like, for the time being, it doesn't even feel like Dan Hurley has squeezed massive dollars from either side. The problem is, though, he should have been squeezing massive dollars from the Lakers. And the biggest takeaway I have from it right now is the Lakers needed to put out an offer that Dan Hurley would have felt, if not impossible to walk away from, pretty close to impossible, where if nothing else, you could look at it and go, my God, Dan Hurley walked away from that.
It just doesn't care about the money. The money is not going to be the thing that makes a decision. And this, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, making him one of the highest paid coaches in the NBA, as opposed to the highest by a pretty decent clip, that's just not enough if you want to really cover all your bases as well as possible.
To your point, like, or who's the highest? Is it Spo's the highest paid coach right now in the NBA?
Spo, or maybe Kerr by year. Like I don't know off the top of my head.
Something like that, where like you're making the same as Eric Spoelstra,
Could
whatever
be Williams,
right? Because like I was going to say,
it might be
one of the 6 highest coaches in the league, and the league is Monty. It does sort of take some of the air out of that balloon. But like, to the question of was Hurley using the Lakers? I don't think he was, but also too. That number doesn't let you find out, because if you're trying to, because I've seen a couple of people like, it's not a bad offer. It isn't. It's not an insulting level of money where you're saying, look, we're giving you an opportunity to come to the NBA and be the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. You get to find out what it's like to be a Laker and like bathe in our culture or what all that kind of stuff. Like, that's not what they did. It's a perfectly nice and competitive offer, for an NBA head coach, 6 years, $70 million. Frank Vogel would have been very pleased with that. But it's not big enough to be enough of a contrast where you're trying to get a guy to leave a program that a guy who has expressed meaningful words about loyalty and things like that. You are trying to get him to leave a place where he's looking for a 3rd straight NCAA title, where his family has roots, not just his wife, who is, as we all learned over the weekend, famously from New Jersey. His parents live in the area. Like, you're asking him to move away from his family core, all of these things. And you want to make money. One of the compelling things to do, you have to sell them on the job. There's no question. Money wasn't enough. Isn't going to be do. Like, I don't think there is enough money in the world to make Hurley take, what's the worst NBA program out there? Like, the worst franchise.
Wizards.
I don't think he's going
Pistons.
There. The Pistons for $100 million. It's like, no, thank you. I don't care what you offer. But the Lakers are a different deal. It's a compelling package. You have to make the basketball part of it attractive, and then pair that with a number that is so high that like you saying, he's legitimately got to go. Like, people are going to be like, damn, he turned that down. Right now, it looks like the Lakers basically screwed it up. Like, by making the big play for Hurley without the big, really overwhelming financial package. Is he worth it? I don't know. But if you want him, you got to make that offer and find out and be willing to eat $40 million. And instead, what this looks like is another example of the Lakers just not having the financial resources to do stuff like this. Like, how much do you
or they have them and they're not willing to part with it, one or the other.
How much do you think Steve Ballmer would have offered in this situation if he was in this situation looking to draw Dan Hurley from Connecticut to the Clippers? What would Steve Ballmer's offer have been?
It would have been a 9-figure offer. I can promise it would have been a 9-figure offer. I mean, I'm having trouble getting past the money portion of it. I don't know what the rest of the presentation was. But I'm having a lot of trouble from a strategic standpoint getting past the money. Okay, well, speaking of money, let's pay some bills right now. Locked On Lakers brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. The easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. Just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 or more player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball and hockey entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. When the finals end, the hoop action just gets started. Women's basketball, young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, veterans like Asia Wilson, Breanna Stewart, win up to 100 times your money as the ladies do their thing. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account. Make your picks, submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is not going to... I don't think the Lakers were wrong to go out and try to get Hurley. I don't think, and we'll get into what comes next year. And I still think they'll be able to hire their next coaches and whatever to kick it into gear here. But I don't think it's going to prevent them from hiring the next guys that they want on their list, and other coaches are going to walk away from it. But if the goal was to, at the very least, show the Lakers are willing to make bold moves, Andy, that position them as a more modern franchise, as a franchise that's willing to play financially in the places that you need to play, to build the kind of support staff that is so important in a capped, an increasingly punitively capped league. This is a failure. I mean, I don't, maybe I'll think about it as more information comes in, and on Monday afternoon, at least, I see this as a failure.
I do as well.
Not of imagination, but of execution.
I do as well, and I don't frankly feel as confident as you that this will not affect the search for who they hire next or who they eventually hire at all. We shall see. I hope to be wrong on it, because the quest for Hurley indicated perhaps that the Lakers are finally treating the coaching position like it actually matters. And I've talked about this a few times. The detail when Woj broke this pursuit of Hurley that jumped out at me more than even Hurley himself were the details about the Lakers recognizing that the league has changed and that they can't just pursue stars above all else and just treat it like as long as you have a few names, everything else will fall into place. And those names only matter when it comes to the superstars, and that they were kind of recognizing that it was long since time to come to Jesus, and that they really need to start rethinking the way they do things. And I want to wait to see more play out before I decide that was perhaps just a brief flickering moment in time, as opposed to a realization that is going to carry forward, that has actual legs, because we don't know what's going to happen next. But for somebody like JJ Redick, for example, does this definitively mean that they can't get him if he now is back at the top of their list? No, it doesn't definitively mean anything, but JJ Redick now has tangible evidence that there was somebody that they wanted much more than him. After all the time and the leaks about the next Pat Riley, from JJ Redick's perspective, it's like, well, was that just BS? Like the things that I'm hearing they thought about me, was that just their way of selling me? Because for common sense reasons, there are a lot of question marks about JJ Redick, even if you believe in his potential. Was that just trying to, shine up this potential hire with a lot of question marks? Redick might decide, you know what, I've got an awesome gigs right now between ESPN, who I guarantee does not want to lose Redick, his podcast. He's in a situation that's already lucrative, that he's very good at it. This thing might make him say, you know what, I don't need this. I don't need this as my entry point into NBA coaching.
There's no question.
And then if you get,
you're right,
real quick, if you get you don't end up with Redick, Then you start getting into the guys that absolutely feel like consolation prizes. And you're going to have this again. And that matters.
I think the real question here, well, not the real question, a question. I hate when it was the real question here is, I agree with you. I think there is a danger. The danger that JJ Redick, if that's who you really want as your second choice says no, is higher now than it was before. There's no question. And he might see the Lakers' job as less appealing. 100% agree with you there. I think where we just disagree is probably in the degree to which that will push Redick away. I still think there's a very good chance that Redick would want the job and would take it anyway, with the understanding that this is a little bit how the world works. And then, like James
doesn't typically work to this degree, though.
It does. It's just, this is more public. The Lakers made this big public play for another, but when Vogel was hired, they went through a bunch they made a play for Monty and they didn't get him. And they all these other things. And I think the larger question, or a larger question to ask, is why do the Lakers keep not getting their first choice candidates? Is it because in the case of Ty Lue, they just didn't offer him a contract that Lue felt
they won't go all the way, is what seems to be the common sticking point, is they won't go all the way, which gets back to my original fear of they just don't think it's that important.
Or it's either that they don't think it's that important, or they're stuck on, there are a few options. They don't think it's that important. And by the way, these are not all mutually exclusive, but they don't think it's that important. They get hung up on what is the appropriate value? Okay, Dan Hurley, yes, but you've never been an NBA coach before. So to pay you at the same level of Steve Kerr or Eric Spoelstra, or guys who have won multiple NBA championships, is just not right. You're not at that level yet. We'll put you pretty close, which is higher than most first-time NBA coaches ever get. And that's a lot of money, but we're not doing the other thing because you haven't proven yourself. It's not the right thing to do from a value standpoint, like an appropriate contract. It's like, we won't overpay for players. We're not going to overpay for coaches. And then the third part of that is they just can't afford it. I mean, I tweeted out the question, like, what would Steve Ballmer's offer have been? And I mentioned that before. And I wouldn't expect the Lakers can't compete on the same financial market as Steve Ballmer, because, even other incredibly rich NBA owners can't go toe to toe with Ballmer. I mean, he's like the richest owner in American pro sports. But if you can't play in that space, then either you got to come up with other ways to do things, or stop trying, like, get more creative in how you solve these problems, because you can't pretend like, you're going to make people these, great offers and overwhelming things and whatever, and turn this new page in franchise history and all that, and then not deliver on the financial part of it. Because I saw, and I was looking at Twitter, kind of trying to follow this all happening basically in real time. This from @Loversk on Twitter. He tweeted us at Cam Brothers to the answer to my question about Ballmer's offer to Hurley. What it would have been, and he said it didn't come down to money. And I'm like, that's my point, is they didn't make it come down to money. They didn't make money a compelling enough factor to be a tipping point. And so what they're doing then, it says, is relying on the Lakers brand. And, you should be paying us for this opportunity. And that's just not how the world works anymore. The Lakers are a Tiffany franchise, but with that comes the desire, you should be paying Tiffany rates, not that I should be so overwhelmed and honored at the opportunity to coach you. Again, it wasn't an insulting offer. It was just way too low.
This is the problem.
The effect that the Lakers wanted.
It was a good offer. It needed to be a Godfather offer, and it wasn't a Godfather offer.
Right. And if he still might have turned it down.
He might have turned it down, but you needed to look at that as a Godfather offer, and it wasn't.
If he turned down 8 and 100, or 7 and 100, or 8 and 110, or whatever it is, and he turned that down, everyone looks at that and says, I mean, bleep, they tried. I mean, that's
Right. Sure.
You're not, I mean, what more does he want? A lifetime contract like that? This isn't that. And so I think the Lakers come out of this. I mean, I wonder where they'll go. I mean, like the other part of Woj,
we can explore a lot of that. We got plenty of time to explore what happens next.
We'll look into where they go next, but like, that Redick will get a formal interview. His first, Borrego is the only guy who's done multiple interviews, where he did his second interview, which was like, because remember, the first round of interviews was just, like Rob Pelinka, like a rap session. We're just getting to know each other. Borrego is the only guy who's done 2 of those. So Redick theoretically comes in and they continue the process and whatever, but we'll see where they go. I think the next 24 hours, 48 hours or whatever are going to be instructive in terms of what we hear and see, both from leaks that appear to come from the Lakers, but also leaks that appear to come from the coaching community, as to why Hurley said no, what the other candidates are thinking, because the Lakers got to kick this into gear. Like, the draft is coming up soon. I mean, So
I mean, I don't need to go on another soliloquy about why do you not just hire Redick? So my thoughts on this.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube. Please leave us questions and comments, as I'm sure people will. What do you think the Lakers ought to do next? And we will have a full show for everyone tomorrow.